The Google Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL are finally here, offering a ton of awesome new features, a new design, and, as we get every year, some fancy new artificial intelligence. The Pixel series has long been aimed at showing off Android as Google sees it. But Google hasn't always achieved that without issue. While the original Pixel and Pixel 2 were largely praised, the Pixel 3 suffered issues with RAM management, and the Pixel 3 XL had that horrifically over-the-top notch. Now, the company is here to pick up the pieces. But does it achieve that? Well, somewhat. I've been using the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL to find out exactly how well they perform. Here are my thoughts. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. It really supports my work, and I'd really appreciate that support. When you first take the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL out of the box, you'll immediately notice their design, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. Unlike last year, the Pixel 4 XL really is just a bigger version of the Pixel 4, both in design and in internal specifications. Let's start with the negative aspects of design, and the most blaringly obvious is the relatively large forehead. I'm actually not sure what I dislike more, the notch on the Pixel 3 XL or the large forehead on the Pixel 4. Sure, the notch was ugly, but at least you got that extra bit of screen real estate for things like the time or notifications. That said, the forehead on the Pixel 4 series does house some pretty fancy tech. It offers Google's Soli tech, which is essentially radar that can track movement near the phone. The device basically tracks movement within a kind of bubble around it, and it can come in handy whether you explicitly use it or not. For example, when it's sitting on a table, it'll detect when you reach for the phone and activate the facial recognition technology, making the unlocking process a lot faster than it otherwise would be. It was very fast when I used it. Soli, however, also allows you to use some gestures without touching the phone. For example, you can swipe right or left to go to the next or previous song when you're listening to music. It can be a little tricky to get used to, but once you do, it works okay. All that said, I really didn't end up using gestures like that a lot. It could come in handy for things like switching songs when you have dirty hands when you're cooking, but apart from that, I think most will stick to touch controls, especially considering the failure rate of the tech at this point. Thankfully, the forehead is by far the worst aspect of the Pixel 4's design, and the rest is actually pretty nice. The phones offer an awesome looking matte black rail around the edges, interrupted only by the colourful power button. On the back, there's a square camera bump, but I actually don't mind it at this point, and as far as square camera bumps go, it actually looks pretty good, especially in contrast to the colours on the back. Speaking of colours, this phone is available in 3, but only 2 of them are worth considering. The clearly white and the oh-so orange both look awesome, and that's as someone who normally prefers black and grey devices. I have the oh-so orange Pixel 4 and the clearly white Pixel 4 XL and love them both. Overall, the design of the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL isn't bad, but hopefully Google will adopt modern smartphone design trends next year and build a phone with a truly edge-to-edge display, as other companies are doing and as Apple is rumoured to be working on. Speaking of the display, it looks great, especially on the Pixel 4 XL. Google has stepped things up with a 90Hz display on both the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL. You'll get a 1080p resolution on the Pixel 4 and a 1440p resolution on the Pixel 4 XL. I wish Google would have included a 1440p display on the smaller phone too, but I care more about the higher refresh rate here, and thankfully it's still ultra responsive and smooth considering that 90Hz refresh rate. I'm hoping most smartphone manufacturers adopt higher refresh rate screens in 2020. I'm looking at you, Apple. Under the hood, the phones offer pretty much everything you would expect from a flagship device, though really only the bare minimum of what you would expect. The device features the Qualcomm Snapdragon 855, which is fine, but not amazing in a world with the Snapdragon 855 Plus. It also offers 6GB of RAM, which is a huge step up over last year's model, but still not as high as some other phones. Last but not least, you'll have options of either 64GB or 128GB of storage. Still, despite the lack of Snapdragon 855 Plus, Google has clearly worked on optimizing Android to run on the chip that it does have. Benchmark scores on this phone were pretty impressive, and in some cases even better than the Snapdragon 855 Plus equipped OnePlus 7T. Safe to say, the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL both perform really well, though they still don't match up to the iPhone 11 series. Then there's the battery, and your battery experience will largely depend on which model you end up buying. The Google Pixel 4 offers a 2800 mAh battery, and that's smaller than last year's Pixel 3. Considering the addition of a radar system and a 90Hz display, that seems a bit backwards. Under heavy use, you're going to have to charge your phone before the end of the day. I resolved to not charge the phone one day while reviewing, and after taking it off the charger at around 8 AM, it actually died at around 7:30 PM. That was a day of relatively heavy use, but still, considering the fact that the iPhone 11 Pro easily lasts through a day of even very heavy use, I wish Google would have focused more on the battery. The Pixel 4 XL fares a little better, but it's still not amazing. Usually, the Pixel 4 XL got me through a full day of use, but I still had to charge the device during the day to avoid battery anxiety, and heavy users will still find the battery life inadequate. Considering the fact that you're going to need to charge the device relatively frequently, it's nice to see that the devices both come with an 18-watt fast charger and support wireless charging. The battery is one of the worst things about the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL, but the camera is one of the best. Spec-wise, the phones come with a dual-sensor rear-facing camera, with a 12.2 megapixel wide-angle lens and a 16 megapixel telephoto lens. It's interesting that Google decided to go for a telephoto lens here instead of an ultra-wide lens, but Google made a serious case for it on stage at its event. I personally wish Google would have just done both. The fact that it didn't means that cameras from the iPhone 11 Pro and even OnePlus 7T are far more versatile than the Pixel 4, whether they look as good or not. The main justification Google made for including a telephoto lens is to combine the lens with its super res zoom tech, and it paid off. The 8x zoom on the Google Pixel 4 series looks far better than on other phones, including from the likes of Apple. At those levels of zoom, the Pixel still retains a decent level of detail and clarity, while the iPhone tends to overcompensate and ends up adding artifacts to the image. Zoom tech aside, regular photos on the Pixel 4 look great too, but they're not necessarily better than the iPhone 11 Pro. Both the Pixel 4 and the iPhone offer beautifully detailed photos, excellent night modes, and more. The Pixel 4 typically takes photos with a slightly warmer tone to them. This has to do with the color balance that the phones apply, and while I generally preferred the Pixel 4's white balance to the iPhone's, neither handled things badly. The camera app on the Pixel 4 is pretty versatile too. You can manually switch to night mode if and when you want to, which is nice for those who want better control over their photos. Speaking of night photos, Google has also added a new Astrophotography Mode to the device, and it's pretty awesome. It's probably not something that you use all the time, considering that you have to place your camera on a tripod or on a hard surface to be completely still, but when you do use it, you'll love it. The portrait mode on the Pixel 4 is a little better than previous generation Pixel devices, and that's thanks to the telephoto lens. Generally speaking, the Google Pixel 4 offers one of the best cameras in the game. Yes, it could be a little more versatile with an ultra-wide lens, but it takes excellent photos in most situations. It's still a little lacking in the video department. For example, it can't shoot 4K footage at 60 frames per second, which is a bit of a bummer. The Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL obviously ship with the new Android 10, and as you would expect, it's a super clean experience. There are a few extra features too. Notably, the Pixel 4 is the first device with the new Google Assistant 2.0. Google has managed to shrink the algorithms that Assistant uses, and as a result, those algorithms largely live on device. What that means is that Assistant is supposed to work faster, it's a little more private, and it can do more without an internet connection. The overall software experience on the Pixel 4 actually reminds me of another phone, the iPhone. Android is so well integrated here, and everything simply feels seamless. It's a little hard to explain. Maybe it's a combination of the phone's feel in the hand, the smooth 90Hz refresh rate, and the cleaner than anything else Android experience, but Google is getting better at improving the overall user experience in general. Still, the Google Pixel 4 has me a little frustrated. On the one hand, it's probably my favorite Android phone on the market right now, thanks to its clean software experience, powerful specs, and awesome camera. But it fails in some pretty key areas, like battery life. Still, despite those downsides, it's still an excellent phone to go for. If you care about battery life and want the Google experience, then the Pixel 4 XL is the way to go. While if you don't mind charging your device up during the day, then you'll still love the Google Pixel 4. Alternatively, if you simply want a decent phone and could stand to save a few bucks, then it's worth going for something like the OnePlus 7T. Ultimately, I'm going to stick with the Google Pixel 4 XL for my Android phone needs. Everything feels natural and seamless, and that's important to me. I am looking forward to the Pixel 5 though, and hopefully Google will prioritize design and a better battery life for next year's device. Thanks so much for watching, and again, please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Again, my name is Christian, and I'll see you next time. See ya.